ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायण नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवति उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपाकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. Shri Bhagavan अथ ते सम्प्रवक्ष्यामि तत्त्वानां लक्षणः पृथक् यद्विदित्वा विमुच्येत पुरुषः प्राकृतैर्गुणैः. The personality of Godhead Kapila continued, My dear mother, now I shall describe unto you the different categories of the absolute truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of the modes of material nature. ज्ञानं निःश्रेयसार्थाय पुरुषस्यात्मदर्शनं यदाहुर्वर्णयेतत्ते हृदयग्रन्थिभेदनम्. Knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. I shall explain that knowledge unto you by which the knots of attachment to the material world are cut. अनादिरात्मा पुरुषो निर्गुणः प्रकृते परः प्रत्यग्धामा स्वयं ज्योतिर्विश्वं येन समन्वितम्. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Soul, and He has no beginning. He is transcendental to the material modes of nature and beyond the existence of this material world. He is perceivable everywhere because He is self effulgent, and by His self effulgent luster, the entire creation is maintained. स एष प्रकृतिं सूक्ष्मां दैवीं गुणमयीं विभुः यदृच्छैवोपगताम् अभ्यपद्य लीलया. As his pastime, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the greatest of the great, accepted the subtle material energy which is invested with three material modes of nature and which is related with Vishnu. गुणैर्विचित्राः सृजतीं सरूपाः प्रकृतिं प्रजाः विलोक्य मुमुहे सद्यः सह्य ज्ञानगूहया. Divided into varieties by her threefold modes, material nature creates the forms of the living entities, and the living entities, seeing this, are illusioned by the knowledge covering feature of the illusory energy. एवं पराभिध्यानेन कर्तृत्वं प्रकृते पुमान् कर्मसु क्रियमाणेषु गुणै आत्मनि मन्यते. Because of his forgetfulness, the transcendental living entity accepts the influence of material energy as his field of activities, and thus actuated, he wrongly applies the activities to himself. तदस्य संसृतिर्बन्धः पारतन्त्र्य च तत्कृतं भवत्यकुर्तुर् ईशस्य साक्षिणो निर्वृतात्मनः. Material consciousness is the cause of one's conditional life, in which conditions are enforced upon the living entity by the material energy. Although the spirit soul does not do anything and is transcendental to such activities, he is thus affected by conditional life. कार्यकारणकर्तृत्वे कारणं प्रकृतिं विदुः भोक्तृत्वे सुखदुःखानां पुरुषं प्रकृतेः परम्. The cause of the conditioned soul's material body and senses, and the senses presiding deities, the demigods, is the material nature. This is understood by learned men. The feelings of happiness and distress of the soul, who is transcendental by nature, are caused by the spirit soul himself. Devahutirvacha प्रकृते पुरुषस्यापि लक्षणं पुरुषोत्तमं ब्रूहि कारणयोरस्य Sadasaccha yat atmakam. Devahuti said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, kindly explain the characteristics of the Supreme Person and his energies, for both of these are the causes of this manifest and unmanifest creation. श्रीभगवानुवाच यत्तत्त्रिगुणम् अव्यक्तं नित्यं सदसदात्मकं प्रधानं प्रकृतिं अविशेषं विशेषत्वात्. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said the unmanifested eternal combination of the three modes is the cause of manifest state and is called Pradhana. It is called Prakriti when in the manifested stage of existence. पञ्चभिः पञ्चभिर्ब्रह्मा चतुर्भिर्दशभिस्तथा एतश्चतुर्विंशतिकं गुणं प्राधानिकं विदुः. The aggregate elements, namely the five gross elements, five subtle elements, four internal senses, the five senses for gathering knowledge, and five outward organs of action, are known as pradhana. महाभूतानि पञ्चैव भूराहो अग्नि अपो अग्निर्मरुन्नभः तन्मात्राणि च तावन्ति गन्धादीन गन्धादीनि matani me. There are five gross elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. There are also five subtle elements: smell, taste, color, touch, and sound. इन्द्रियाणि दश श्रोत्रं त्वग्दृक् रसन नासिकाः वाक् करौ चरणौ मेध्रं पायुर्दशम uchyate. The senses for acquiring knowledge and the organs for action number 10, namely the auditory sense, the sense of taste, the tactile sense, the sense of sight, the sense of smell, and the active organs for speaking, working, traveling, generating, and evacuating. मनोबुद्धिरहङ्कारश्च मनोबुद्धिरहङ्कारस् चित्तम् इत्यन्तर् आत्मकं चतुर्धा लक्ष्यते भेदो वृत्त्या. The internal subtle senses are experienced as having four aspects in the shape of mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. The distinctions between them can be made only by different functions, since they represent different characteristics. एतावान् एव सङ्ख्यातो ब्रह्मणः स गुणस्यः सन्निवेशो मया प्रोक्तो यः कालः पञ्चविंशकः. All these are considered the qualified Brahman. The mixing element, which is known as time, is counted as 25th element. प्रभावं पौरुषं प्राहुः कालम् एके यतो भयम् अहङ्कारविमूढस्य कर्तुः प्रकृतिम् ईयुषः. The influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death due to the false ego of deluded soul which has contacted material nature. प्रकृतेर्गुणसाम्यस्य निर्विशेषस्य मानवी श्रेष्ठायत स भगवान् काल इति उपलक्षितः. My dear mother, O daughter of Swayambhu Manu, the time factor, as I have explained, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead from whom the creation begins as a result of agitation of the neutral unmanifested nature. Antah Purusha Rupena Kala Rupena ya Bahihi Samanveti Yesha Sattvanam Bhagavan Atma Mayaya. By exhibiting his potencies, the Supreme Personality of Godhead adjusts all these different elements, keeping himself within as the super soul and without as time. दैवात् क्षुभित धर्मिण्यां स्वस्यां योनौ परः पुमान् आदत्त वीर्यं सासुत महत्तत्वं हिरण्मयम्. After the Supreme Personality of Godhead impregnates the material nature with his internal potency, material nature delivers the sum total of cosmic intelligence which is known as Hiranmaya. This takes place in material nature when she is agitated by the destinations of the conditioned souls. Vishwamatma Vyanjan Kutasto Jagat Ankuraha Swateja Sa Pibat Tirvram Tivram Atma Praswapanam Tamaha. Thus, after manifesting variegatedness, the effulgent Mahatattva, which contains all the universes within itself, which is a root of all cosmic manifestations, and which is not destroyed at the time of annihilation, swallows the darkness that covered the effulgence at the time of dissolution. यत्तत्सत्त्वगुणस्वच्छं शान्तं भगवतः पदं यः आहुर्वासुदेवाख्यं चित्तं तन्महत् आत्मकम्. The mode of goodness, which is the clear, sober status of understanding the personality of Godhead, and which is generally called Vasudeva or consciousness, becomes manifest in the Mahat Tattva. स्वच्छत्वम् अविकारित्वं शान्तत्वम् इति चेतसः प्रीतिभिर्लक्षण लक्षणं प्रोक्तं यथापां प्रकृतिः परा. After the manifestation of Mahat Tattva, these features appear simultaneously. As water in its natural state before coming in contact with earth is clear, sweet, and unruffled, so the characteristic traits of pure consciousness are complete serenity, clarity, and freedom from distraction. महत्तत्वाद् विकुर्वाणाद् भगवद्वीर्यसम्भवात् क्रियाशक्तिरहङ्कारस्त्रिविधः सम्पद् समपद्यत वैकारिकतैजसश्च तामसश्च यतः भवः मनसश्चेन्द्रियाणां च भूतानां महतापहम् अपि. The material ego springs up from the Mahat Tattva, which evolved from the Lord's own energy. The material ego is endowed predominantly with active power of three kinds: good, passionate, and ignorant. It is from these three types of material ego that the mind, the senses of perception, the organs of action, and the gross elements evolve. सहस्रशीर्षं साक्षात् यम् अनन्तं प्रचक्षते संकर्षणात्क्यं पुरुषं भूतेन्द्रियमनोमयम्. The threefold Ahankara, the source of the gross elements, the senses and the mind, is identical with them because it is their cause. It is known by the name Sankarshana, who is directly Lord Ananta with 1,000 heads. कर्तृत्वं करणत्वं च कार्यत्वं चेति लक्षणं शान्तघोरविमूढत्वम् इति वा स्याद् अहङ्कृतेः. This false ego is characterized as the doer, as an instrument, and as an effect. It is further characterized as serene, active, or dull, according to which it is influenced by the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. वैकारिकाद् विकुर्वाणान् मनस्तत्त्व अजायत यत्सङ्कल्पविकल्पाभ्यां वर्तते कामसम्भवः. From the false ego of goodness, another transformation takes place. From this evolution, the mind, whose thoughts and reflections give rise to desire. यद्विदुर् यद्विदुर् हि अनिरुद्धाख्यं ऋषिकानाम् अधीश्वरं सारदेन्दीवरश्यामं सम्राड्यं योगिभिः शनैः. The mind of the living entity is known by the name of Lord Aniruddha, the supreme ruler of the senses. He possesses a bluish black form resembling a lotus flower growing in the autumn. He is found slowly by the yogis. तैजसात्तु विकुर्वाणा बुद्धितत्त्वम् अभूत्सति द्रव्य स्फुरन विज्ञानम् indriyanam anugraha. By transformation of false ego in passion, intelligence takes birth. O virtuous lady, the functions of intelligence are to help in ascertaining the nature of objects when they come into view, and to help the senses. संशयोऽस्थ विपर्यासो निश्चयः स्मृतिरेव च स्वाप इत्युच्यते बुद्धेर्लक्षणं वृत्तितः पृथक्. Doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, and sleep, as determined by their different functions, are said to be the distinct characteristics of intelligence. तैजसानीन्द्रियाणि एव क्रियाज्ञानविभागशः प्राणस्य हि क्रियाशक्तिर्बुद्धेर्विज्ञानशक्तिता. Egoism, in the mode of passion, produces two kinds of senses: the senses for acquiring knowledge and the senses of action. The senses of action depend on the vital energy, and the senses for acquiring knowledge depend on intelligence. तामश्च तामसाश्च विकुर्वाणाद् भगवद्वीर्यचोदिताः तात शब्दमात्रम् अभूतस्मान् नभः श्रोत्रं तु शब्दगम. When egoism in ignorance is agitated by the sex energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the subtle element sound is manifested, and from sound comes the ethereal sky and the sense of hearing. Arthashayatvam शब्दस्य द्रष्टुर्लिङ्गत्वम् एव च तन्मात्रत्वं च नभसो लक्षणं कवयो विदु. Persons who are learned and who have true knowledge define sound as that which conveys the idea of an object. It indicates the presence of a speaker screened from our view and constitutes the subtle form of ether. भूतानां छिद्र दातृत्वं बहिरन्तरम् एव च प्राणेन्द्रियात्मा दिश्यत्वं नभसो वृत्तिलक्षणम्. The activities and characteristics of the ethereal element can be observed as the accommodation of room for the external and internal existences of all living entities, namely the field of activities of vital air, the senses, and the mind. नभस शब्द तन्मात्रात् कालगत्या विकुर्वतः स्पर्शो भवत् ततो वायुस्त्वक् स्पर्शस्य च संग्रहः. From ethereal existence, which evolved from sound, the next transformation takes place under the impulse of time, and thus the subtle element touch, and hence the air and sense of touch become prominent. Yeah, we'll stop here. We'll take the second part tomorrow and we'll try to understand what is Kapila Muni is conveying here. 1 second. Did I stop the... Is it sharing? Did I share the screen till now?
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
It was, okay. Okay. Okay, let me quickly refer my notes. Of course, to cover each of this verse would even take its own time, because this is um, giving a very brief glimpse of each of how things created in the material world. So this is in continuation of Kapila Muni narrating or clarifying and also instructing his own mother, Devahuti. And here he is saying, Atate sampravakshyami. Sampravakshyami means I shall describe Tatvanam, Lakshanam Pratak, Yad Viditva Vimuchyeta Purusha Prakriter Gunai. So, what is the benefit of this chapter if we can understand? Of course, for my limited capacity, is too much. But one who can really go through the purports of Prabhupada in further detail, you can understand what is the purpose of this chapter. That one can understand, because Prabhupada has very nicely put forward what is the message from this Sankhya philosophy, the gist of it. I think yes, last week Parth Prabhu was asking. So he is saying, now I shall describe unto you the different categories of absolute truth, because this is something we have yeah, as very naive, we think that truth is only one. There is only one truth. There are different categories of absolute truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of modes of material nature. So I was thinking initially, why do we need to know about the matter? Yeah, this is the key message from the Lord Himself, that if we know the material world, we can understand how dangerous it is. When we understand how dangerous it is, that pushes us to get out of it. Another thing is, of course, if we are here, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to understand everything is part and parcel of the Lord. Even this material world is part and parcel of the Lord with a purpose. So in both the ways, one is released from the influence of material modes of nature. In the purport, Prabhupada is writing that Bhaktyama Abhijanati. So only through devotional service we can understand the Lord. So only a devotee can understand the material creation. One may think, a scientist, I can do all kinds of research, and through research I can come up with my own understanding, which is backed up by so many existing conclusions or laws, etc. No, we can't understand. Here it's clearly there that one who understands the Lord, uh, even His creation, only it's possible through devotional service. And explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, to understand Krishna means to understand Krishna in his personal form, which is with his internal energy, his external energy, his expansions, his incarnations. So, all this is what it means to understand Krishna. So, that's why this chapter also helps us to understand, okay, tato mam tatvato gnatva. Gnatva means by understanding the Lord, according to various categories, one can become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. This is also explained here. The eternal self, when we talk about by understanding the science of devotional service in Sankhya philosophy, one can become free from the modes of material nature. So that is the reason why this whole Sankhya philosophy or Sankhya yoga is a very important subject matter of interest for Vidura. Why he is asking, and then why Maitreya Muni is telling all this is because it is very important even for devotees. And then goes further. Knowledge is the ultimate perfection for of self-realization. So knowledge is very important. Why? Because it can help us. I shall explain that knowledge unto you, by which the knots of attachment to material world are cut. When we know the reality, the bitter reality of this material world, then we will come to our senses. At the moment we are controlled by our senses, but we are not controlling the senses. We will control our senses when we understand how dangerous is this material world. When, how? By acquiring knowledge. What kind of knowledge? The knowledge that Lord is speaking to his mother Devahuti. In Svetaswara Upanishad also this is confirmed. Tam eva viditvati mrityum eti. Simply by understanding one's spiritual position or by seeing oneself as he is, one can be freed from material entanglement. In Bhagavatam is also Purushasya Atma Darshanam, that one has to see oneself and know what he is. So Kapila Deva explains to his mother, this seeing can be done by hearing from the proper authoritative source. So we usually are very convinced that seeing can help us, but seeing has its flaws. So we need to hear, not from anyone, because there are enough people who can tell. Everyone can give a law of his own whether works or not. Yeah, you have to try. You are what do you call this? Mm, you become a tester. Yeah. Yeah. So this position of rightly understanding oneself cuts the knot of material attraction. Hridaya Granthi Bhedanam. Bhedanam means to uh, to break into, or to pierce or to open, to cut. Bhedanam. And then what happens is Atma Darshanam means to see oneself by knowledge. Therefore, when one is freed from false ego by cultivation of real knowledge, he sees himself. Oh, okay. Does this mean I need to understand everything? We don't have to worry. When we are taking to bhakti, when we are taking to devotional service, the Lord will give us intelligence what we need to know, that can help us to advance in devotion. By knowing everything, we don't want to become a jnani. Huh? In the purest form of jnani, that's okay, but sometimes jnana also can make us puffed up, may also make us feel, oh, I am great. So we have to be under the shelter of bhakti yoga while acquiring the knowledge. So the Supreme Lord is saying is the Supreme Soul, and He has no beginning. So here we can understand that Paramatma, when we refer the Paramatma, He has no beginning, no end. He is transcendental to the material modes of nature and beyond the existence of this material world. He is perceivable everywhere. Very interesting. He is beyond, but at the same time, He can be perceived, because He is self-effulgent. And by His self-effulgent luster, the entire creation is maintained. So how when the Lord is beyond it, it's just like a company CEO. He may not be coming to the company, but his power is felt. But why? Because any purchases that are made or any sales that are made, any maintenance in the factories that's done, it's all approved and granted by the head. So similarly, here it is said the Lord is perceived, he because he is self-effulgent, because he has that power from within. The theory that consciousness develops a certain stage of middle combination is not accepted here. Okay, I would really leave the purports for you. Please take some time, read through them, absorb, have your questions clarified, because there is quite some information that is provided here from a spiritual dimension to understand the absolute truth. Hmm. We are trying from a different dimension so far, whether it's science or yeah other fields, but we are still not able to get there. But Vedanta Sutras are saying Janmadhyasya, this eternal material exhibition, its creation, its growth, its maintenance, and its dissolution is an emanation from the Supreme Lord. And how these verses are giving right from the beginning of creation of the material world. So स एष प्रकृतिं सूक्ष्मं this gunamayim is mentioned here, सूक्ष्मं दैवीं गुणमयीं विभुः, as his pastimes, as his pastime, that supreme personality of Godhead, the greatest of the great, accepted the subtle material energy which is invested with the three modes of nature and which is related with Vishnu. So sometimes we may think, oh, this material world, Lord, He didn't create. After all, it's a big bang that got made this creation. There is no connection between the Lord or your so-called Lord and this so-called world. No, here we can see the which is related with Vishnu. The energy emanated from the Supreme Lord manifests in two ways: as an emanation from the Supreme Lord and as a covering of the Lord's face. Huh? How the example given, the example of a cloud is very nicely given. All of a sudden, there may appear a big cloud in the sky. This cloud is perceived in two ways. To the sun, the cloud is a creation of its energy. Hmm? But to the ordinary common man, in the conditioned state, it is a covering to the eyes, because because of the cloud, the sun cannot be seen. So we know why the clouds come, right? This water, which is from the seas, because of the sun heat, it starts becoming a cloud because of vapor. So in fact, it is sun which is creating. So sun has a clear clarity. But for us, mm, those conditioned souls who are covered are individual living entities, and he from whom energy Maya is created, the Supreme Lord. So from this example, it is clear, hmm, that it is not that the sun is actually covered by the cloud. Only the vision of ordinary being is covered. Our vision is covered when the big cloud is saying, oh, there is no more sun, we may think because we can't see. But truth is not that. So similarly, I as an individual is created uh, by Lord, He from whom energy Maya is created, is the Supreme Lord. In another place in Bhagavatam, in the first canto, seventh chapter, it is stated that by his spiritual vision, saw Vyasadeva with his spiritual vision, he saw the Supreme Lord and material energy standing behind him. So this indicates that material energy cannot cover the Lord, just as darkness cannot cover the sun. Darkness can cover a jurisdiction which is very insignificant in comparison to that of the sun. Darkness can cover only a small cave, but not the open sky. Similarly, the covering capacity of the material energy is limited and cannot act on the Supreme Lord, who is therefore called Vibhu. As the appearance of the cloud is accepted by the sun, so the appearance of the material energy at a certain interval is accepted by the Lord. Uh, so this gives us an understanding the how material world is depending on the Supreme Lord. Divided into varieties by her threefold modes, material nature creates the forms of living entities, and the living entities seeing this are illusioned by the knowledge. I think here there is a very important point in this verse number 5. I'll go straight to that point. It is stated in the previous verse that the material energy was accepted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in that he might exhibit pastimes for the living entities who wanted to enjoy and lord it over the material energy. So the Lord is creating. In fact, it is written, Prabhupada is saying, this world was created through the material energy of the Lord for the so called enjoyment of such living entities. Why this material world was created for suffering of the conditioned souls is a very intricate question. There is a hint in the previous verse in the word Leelaya, which means for the pastimes of the Lord. The Lord wants to rectify the enjoying temperament of the conditioned souls. So that's why this world is created because of the desire, and at the same time, Lord also want to rectify. An example can be cited here that there is no necessity for the government's creation of a separate police department, but because it is a fact that some of the citizens will not accept the state laws, a department to deal with criminals is necessary. There is no necessity, but at the same time, there is a necessity. Yeah? This is similarly, there was no necessity to create this material world for sufferings of the conditioned souls. But at the same time, there are certain living entities known as nityaṁ who are eternally conditioned. We say that they have been conditioned from time immemorial because no one can trace out when the living entity, mm, the part and parcel of the Lord, became rebellious against the supremacy of the Lord. So the question always is there, why when someone is in the spiritual world, why did he come? It is very difficult when they came, but it is that we can see because we are here, it's a proof that we have come. It is a fact that there are two classes of men, those who are obedient to the laws of the Lord and those who are atheists or agnostic who do not accept the existence of the Lord and who want to create their own laws. So that's how this is created. Covered by the material body, the spiritual identity is lost, and therefore the word mumuhe is used here, indicating that they have forgotten their own spiritual identity. This forgetfulness of spiritual identity is present in the jivas who are conditioned, being subject to the covering of the material nature. Hmm. Yeah. As I said, it's very nice. Purport, please refer that. Fifth one, and then now comes because of his forgetfulness. What's happening? He accepts the influence of material energy as his field of activities. So this kshetrajna becomes so addicted to this kshetra, which is temporary, and thus actuated, he wrongly applies the activities to himself. So the Prabhupada writes, the forgetful living entity can be compared to a man who is under the influence of disease and he became mad, and to a man haunted by ghosts who acts without control and yet thinks himself to be in control. Yeah, just like someone who is drunk, we know that he is drunk, but he thinks, no, yeah, I don't know. I mean, whether a person who is drunk really thinks, oh, I have drunk enough, oh, I have been drinking, oh, I am addicted. No, he would just forget that he is drinking. He is just in his own world. Under the influence of material nature, the conditioned soul becomes absorbed in material consciousness. In this consciousness, whatever is done under the influence of modes of nature is accepted by the conditioned soul as self actuated. He thinks, hey, all this is created by me, I have created its purpose, there is no God. Consciousness cannot be killed, for the symptom of living entity is consciousness. The material consciousness simply has to be purified. One becomes liberated by accepting Krishna as the master and by changing the mode of consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness. Oh, we are still a bit slow. Hmm. I think there are few verses which are just telling how the whole metal consciousness is the created later. That I'll skip actually. Material consciousness is the cause of one's conditioned life. So we thinking that we are this body is the cause of our conditional life, in which conditions are enforced upon the living entity by the metal energy. Although the spirit soul does not do anything and is transcendental to such activities, he is thus affected by the conditioned life, the conditional life. So this is the problem, that we start thinking, I am this body, I am an Indian, I am a Pakistani, I am an Russian, I am Ukraine. All these things makes people to start thinking, oh, I have a big role to play. I need to be an influencer, but actually we become an influenced person. But if a living entity simply understands that his constitutional position is to serve Krishna and he tries to act on this principle, then however conditioned he may be, the influence of Maya immediately vanishes. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, Krishna takes charge of anyone who surrenders to him in helplessness, and thus the influence of Maya is removed. So one has to be serious to cure this condition of material existence and transfer himself to Krishna consciousness, for thus his long suffering may be mitigated without difficulty. In summary, the suffering of the conditioned soul is due to his attachment to the material nature. This attachment should thus be transferred from matter to Krishna. कार्य कारण कर्तृत्व कर्तृत्वे कारणं प्रकृति विदुः भोक्तृत्वे सुख दुःखानां पुरुषः प्रकृते परम. The cause of conditioned soul's material body and senses, and the senses preceding deities, the demigods, is the material nature. All this is material nature. This is understood by learned men. The feelings of happiness and distress of the soul, who is transcendental by nature, are caused by the spirit soul himself. So these feelings are caused by the soul. We as a soul, because we have connected ourselves to the material conditioning, we are cause of our suffering. We cannot say, no, 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 it is the material nature that is the cause of everything. No, no, no. No, we choose to be in the material energy. It is just like if I jump into water, I choose to be there in the water. If I don't know swimming, what to do? I have done it. I have chose to be there. Devabhuti is asking, kindly explain the characteristics of the Supreme Lord and his energies. For both of these are causes of this manifest and unmanifest creation. So Devabhuti is asking, now explain. Then from verse number 10, we go till even straight to 35, is all about creation, how everything started. Hmm, Yeah. All these are considered the qualified Brahman. The mixing element, which is known as time, is counted as 25th element. That is very interesting, in the verse number 15. In fact, according to Vedic version, there is no existence beyond Brahman. Sarvam Kalam Idam Brahman. It is stated also in the Vishnu Puran that whatever we see is Parasya Brahmana Shakti. Everything is an expansion of the Lord. So, which means whatever matter we are seeing, it is also still a creation of the Lord. When Brahman is mixed with the three qualities of goodness, passion, ignorance, there results the material expansion, which is sometimes called Saguna Brahman, and which consists of these 25 elements. In the Nirguna Brahman, there is no material contamination, or in the spiritual world, the three modes of material nature are not present. Where Nirguna Brahman is found, simply simple unalloyed goodness prevails, whereas Saguna Brahman is described by Sankhya system of philosophy as consisting of 25 elements including time factor. You can refer verse number 15 to understand this. So there are two creations, Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahma. Nirguna Brahma is the purest form, the spiritual world, and Saguna is contaminated with this with these 25 elements, where time factor is moving things. The influence of the Lord is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death. Ah, in Bhagavad Gita, we see that, what is that? Kalasmi. Lord is saying, I am the time, and what is the role that I am playing is to cause destruction. Here also we are seeing the influence of the Lord is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death due to the false ego of deluded soul who has contacted metal nature. So I'm just now quickly choosing suitable answers before. One who is absorbed in the second element or second exhibition of the spirit is affected, afraid of death. No, I mean, yeah, I'm just highlighted few points I'm reading, but Prakritir Guna Samyasya. Yeah, he's saying uh, the time factor, as I have explained, is the Supreme Lord from whom the creation begins as a result of agitation of neutral, unmanifested nature. And here there is explanation how, with the time factor coming into this whole creation, then everything starts. mm, Um, yeah. All this purports. Yeah, I would just ask, have a self read all these verses is giving the chronological order of how the Mahatattva comes, how Pradhan comes, how the modes of goodness will mix and what happens when the mode of passion comes into it, all these things, and how slowly everything creates, which is material creation. Sahasisirshasha sakshad yan ananta prachakshate sankarshanakhyam purusham bhutendriya manomayam. The threefold ahankar, what we call the threefold ahankar, the source of gross elements, the senses, and the mind is identical with them because it is their cause. It is known by the name Sankarshana, who is directly Lord Ananta with thousand heads. Um, yeah, and then how this false ego is characterized as a doer. It is further characterized as serene, active, or dull, based on how our this false ego is influenced by the three modes. Yeah, I'll just go to the last two verses, 34 and 35. Just saying 34 and 35. That one. Yeah. So here we see 33. Persons who are learned and who have true knowledge define sound as that which conveys the idea of an object, indicates the presence of a speaker screened from our view, and constitutes the subtle form of ether. What does that mean? Is that the importance of sound, shabda, hmm? And every word we hear has a meaning behind it. As soon as we hear the word water, there is a substance water behind the word. Similarly, as soon as we hear the word God, there is a meaning to it. If we receive that meaning and explanation of God from God Himself, then it is perfect. But if we speculate about the meaning of God, it is imperfect. Mental speculators are so-called philosophers who are researching what is actually God will never understand the nature of God. The science of God is has to be understood in disciplic succession from Brahma, who was the first instructed by the knowledge about the knowledge of God by the Lord Himself. Hmm. So, and going further, the activities this verse is 34 is potential basis for great scientific research work. Sometimes I really like this because Bhagavatam can become a very important source of ideas upon which the research can pick and then work, and they will be successful. Why? M- They will be successful mainly because this is absolute truth, first thing, and because they become devotee. Because of their devotion, they will be given right intelligence how to explain this. So, from ethereal existence, which evolves from sound, the next transformation takes under the impulse of time, and thus the subtle elements touch, and thence the air and sense of touch become prominent. So, in the course of time, when the subtle forms are transformed into gross forms, they become the object of touch. Anyway, we'll cover that, or rather, I would say, because this is um, explaining how the creation came, yeah, and how when we talk about the sound or the ears or nose and all, how they are interrelated. Why, if someone has nose but he, or no, if by someone, if he has ears but cannot hear, or if someone has eyes cannot see, all these things, yeah, we can understand when we go through this chapter. I'll stop here. It's been already long. Sorry. Mm, Thank you. Thank you very much, and yeah, have a nice evening. We'll see us tomorrow. पञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यः च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। ग्रन्थराज श्रीमद्भागवतम की जय। श्री प्रभुपाद की जय।